Well, good evening and welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports. I was just thinking about this, man. Every Wednesday for the last, 5 or 6 years, I get a chance to take sports, which I love, chop it up with my fellas, and it's a great hour. It's one of my favorite hours of the week, and I really look forward to it. We have a wonderful show this week as well. We gave Gregory Fenner the night off, so Greg will not be joining us tonight. So you just get the three of us. And so before I go any further, let me introduce the fellas. First of all the way from Indianapolis, Indiana, the Circle City, Mr. David Burnett with the outstanding brim. Good evening. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Chuck, and right here in Indianapolis where it was 71 degrees, a record-setting temperature for this date.
That is great news. That means it'll be over here shortly, and I appreciate that. So
yes, indeed.
Thank you. And one of my longtime friends from the neighborhood, from my school, one of the classiest guys I know. They call him the voice of reason, Mr. Larry Abels. How you doing, sir? How's everything going?
Everything's going well, and I'm looking forward to the show as usual.
All right. Well, let's get into it. So here's the deal. We're going to play first of all, let's get into the NBA All-Star Game. I thought that the NBA All-Star Game this year was terrific. And in fact, it played out as I mentioned last week, like I thought it might. You had three separate groups: the young stars, the OGs, and the international group. Although I don't know how Cat got into the international group. But anyway, those three international groups. And the way they split that up and had the 12-minute games, I just thought it was going to be competitive, so they can talk trash with themselves in the locker room and further on during the season. And I thought it played out that way. So, David, generally speaking, how'd you like the All-Star Game this year?
I loved it. There's a lot of effort that could be seen on the court. Wemby helped, kind of jumpstart, as Ant said later in being interviewed. It was a good game, and it was enjoyable. The format, I hope they continue with this format. Keep in mind, the two best players probably in the world didn't play, Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic. So it might have made a difference in the outcome with the international squad, but it was still hard playing. Again, they're not playing at 100%. They're, as long as you compete, because Tyrese Halliburton, as you know, got injured shooting three-pointers, and he's out for the whole season. You could snap an Achilles just like that. So you got to be, somewhat careful. But the effort was there, and the spirit was there. The old dudes didn't want to get shown up. The young dudes wanted to show up the old dudes. International guys played hard. Play hard, my friend, and it happened.
I applaud everything you just said. It was terrific. I appreciate the effort, and the scores reflected that they were close. All the scores were close. Well, until the last game. Larry, what did you think in general about the format of the All-Star Game, and what did you think of the All-Star Game?
Pretty much what David said. I don't know why it took this format to get them to actually play a little bit. And David, those might be the two best players you mentioned. There's another international player that you left out. I'm shocked at you. SGA. He didn't play. So
I stand corrected. SGA is a superstar.
Yeah. But I thought it was, at least they played the way the All-Star games I remember back in my youth with, they were put forth an effort. It's not like a regular game, but they had fouls. and people actually tried to play a little defense. So I thought it was entertaining. It was worth the time.
Yeah, I did too. I'll tell you what, and we've been talking about this on the show for the last couple of years. That Wemby, I gotta tell you something. Wemby is a difference maker. He's special, generational. I like. There's nothing about Wemby I don't like. What's your thoughts on Wemby, David?
He's skinny. That's my only complaint. And once he bulks up a little bit, because remember, and we're old enough to remember a little bit because from still pictures and whatnot, Wilt Chamberlain was not the big, thick Wilt Chamberlain that he was later in his career. He was kind of spindly. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor was spindly. But if Wemby puts on, another 20 pounds, he's going to be completely unstoppable. He's already almost there now. My God.
Well, David Burnett and Larry Abels and Chuck Snowden, I'm sure at 19, 20, 21 years old, we were probably a little thin too. Meaning naturally. I wasn't. Oh, excuse. Okay. Well, naturally, he's going to get stronger and he's going to put on some weight, and they're going to work on that. I mean, they all have these dietitians and physical trainers, and I think he will be bulking up. But God, I just think he can make the difference.
He's special.
And offense, and God, he has so many skills. Larry, what do you think of Mr. Wemby?
Oh, I think probably in about 2 or 3 years, regardless of how much weight he gains, once he gets a little more experience, and he's going to naturally get stronger anyway, I think he'll be dominant. He's close to being dominant now.
Right now.
But I think he will probably be the most dominant player in the league.
Well, speaking of dominant, David, how was our friend Mr. Kawhi Leonard in that? Was that the third of the 4 periods? How was Mr. Leonard?
You know what? I've been waiting for Kawhi to be unleashed for a while. He's shown this year, because he's now going to be probably eligible for some of the awards this season because he's not missing as many games, not load managing like he normally does. But 31 points in 12 minutes, incredible. He was hitting everything. Kawhi Leonard, he's brought championships to 2 different teams. It's not a mistake. He's a great player, uninjured, and I think his injuries are at least maybe behind him for now. He's special. He should have been the MVP, period. I don't care if he was on the losing team. It didn't matter.
Yeah, he was. Not only was he scoring those points, David, in a game that we were watching that quarter, but he was doing it against the best of the world, the best in the world, if you will, and which was even more impressive, inside, outside, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Larry, what did you think of Mr. Leonard's performance right there in that third period?
Well, that game he played well. The next game he didn't really do anything.
No, they were all out of gas.
Yeah, but I always thought that when he plays, he's one of the best players. I think if he had played more than he has, I mean, right now look at him as somebody almost like Anthony Davis, just not there. Had he been there healthy half of his career, I think we'd be talking about him as being one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
Well, he is one of the all-time greats, but
I agree.
He doesn't have the minutes to get that title or something like that.
Yeah.
I agree.
He's healthy. He's great.
I agree with that.
David, you hit on something, so let me get your thoughts on that. So Anthony Edwards, and he played great in those games, got the MVP. Do you think the right person got the MVP? And I heard you just mention that a second ago.
No. I mean, Anthony Edwards is a great player with a lot of effort, very spectacular. He's 6'4", but he plays like 6'8", 6'9", right. And he's a killer. But 31 points over 3 different periods doesn't compare to Kawhi Leonard. His team won. Yeah. Kawhi Leonard should have been MVP.
How about you, Larry? Did the right person get the MVP in your opinion?
I didn't really have a problem with him getting it, but I had to give it to somebody else. I would have been okay too. But I mean, I thought he played pretty well and pretty consistent.
So we also hit on something, and again, we all 3 agreed that was outstanding and 1,000 times better than the previous All-Star games, except for the ones back in the day when it was a little more competitive. We mentioned the fact there was a blowout in that fourth quarter, and maybe because the OGs had to play 3 straight quarters. can they tweak that, David? Have you thought about that? Do you think that was what happened there in the fourth quarter?
No, the young boys just got going, and they just ran it up. They weren't tired. It's only a couple quarters anyway. I think they just got hit by a storm of youth.
Yeah.
And by the way, the OGs weren't that damn old.
Well,
I mean, you got
KD and LeBron. They're not spring chickens.
Well, KD is, he's my son's age, 37. My son will be 38 in a couple more weeks.
I thought that's what happened.
They weren't that.
And the reason I mentioned that is they couldn't make a shot in terms of the OGs, and I thought maybe their legs were gone. Larry, what did you think about that? And could you tweak that somehow so that that situation wouldn't happen?
They weren't shooting the time before because Kawhi Leonard was the only one making shots.
But he was the only one tagging them. He was the only one.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I don't know if they fell off or they just maybe he was tired of shooting. I don't know. I just thought it was somewhat anticlimactic given the earlier games, but I just thought the other team was hot. One team was hot. One team wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I thought it was great. I hope they continue that format. I think it sounds like we all agree that was a pretty good showing. Should we touch on the dunk contest? Probably not.
Oh, yeah, why not?
Okay, so what's your thoughts of the dunk contest? I don't even know those two dudes, right? I've never even heard of them.
First of all, you know what would spike up the dunk contest? Bring in the and-one dunkers, because the dunks that the professional players, the NBA guys, outside of the kid that won the last 3 years, it's routine. It's not like Julius Erving marking off the distance in Denver at the All-Star game in the ABA that started all of this. I mean, the NBA guys are not as creative as lay people, because the lay guys lay it all out. I'd say let's have a couple of NBA stars against some and-one dunkers and see how it turns out. Because I think the and-one guys, and I use and-one kind of generically, talking about civilians, they would out-dunk the NBA. They would.
Well, part of me thinks it's probably jumped the shark unless somebody has this incredible jumping ability and some creativity. But I don't know. Maybe I'm spoiled from the dunks of the past. Larry, what did you think of the dunk contest? And how do you think they could improve it?
Well, I didn't watch it, okay, because I had no interest. And the reason I didn't watch it, the way I would improve it is I would actually let the All-Stars participate in it. Even later in the ABA, I remember Michael Jordan going against Dominique Wilkins. Those are stars that we want to see. It seems like most of the stars now, for whatever reason, don't even want to get involved in it. And if they're not going to get involved in it, then we really don't need to have it. It's enough All-Stars. It should be 3 or 4 All-Stars that could participate in that.
Can I add one thing to that?
No, absolutely.
Part of our frustration with the dunk contest is we've seen all the dunks now.
Right.
And you guys clowned me when I talked about the fact that I executed a 360 dunk when I saw David Thompson do it back in 1976, and nobody had ever done that before. I had pretty good hops at that time, and I tried it. A couple of guys that I was playing with did it as well, and I never wanted to be beat out in jumping, But we've seen every dunk now. Somebody do something, spectacular. Bring some women in. Bring some.
Or they could just get rid of it.
I wouldn't get rid of it, but you can tweak it by, like I said, the and-one guys, or bring in some women, because women are dunking now, and I think some guys would get all up in their feelings if a woman was out dunking them. And there's some women who can leap.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. We haven't seen it.
And maybe you're right. Maybe we have spoiled because we've seen so much these 3 guys. Because when I turn on the TV during the dunk contest, I think there's not going to be as much enthusiasm or the crowd or the, but there's as much enthusiasm in that dunk contest as it is in any other dunk contest that I've seen over time. The panel of experienced dunkers and a crowd and the players, and everybody's into it.
Just like, remember Michael Jordan imitating Julius Erving, jumping from the free throw line. That's a routine dunk now. But back in the day, it was special. It's not special anymore. We've seen everything.
I'll still maintain I like to see the stars doing it. I mean, that's a big. Most of these guys, I don't even know who they are.
Right.
We have a G League player that won it the last 3 years.
Right.
Well, last thing before we get out of this topic, maybe it's time for, we talk about poster dunks. The dunks that are exciting are the ones that happen in the game. One of the most exciting dunkers of all time, Shawn Kemp. Every one of his dunks was just ridiculous because he was dunking on somebody. And we can't replicate that in an all-star game contest.
Well, we can say what we want to say, but when you mention Dr. J and Michael Jordan and Vince Carter and Darryl Griffin and folks like that, maybe even Shawn Kemp, ain't none of these guys as good as those guys. People can say what they want, but these guys today, they're not as good as those guys. I don't care what nobody says.
And when I say the stars, look at Dr. Michael Jordan going against Dominique Wilkins.
Oh, that was
special. The one that Dominique Wilkins probably should have won.
They stole that.
They stole that.
And then the first one with David Thompson and Dr. J.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have the star quality anymore.
And Darnell Hillman.
Oh yeah, no, Darnell Hillman's there, but when you think of some of the biggest stars in the game.
Well, Larry, let me ask you this question. So you've made that point. Is there a star you would have liked to have seen, or a couple of stars you'd like to have seen in that dunk contest?
Who do you have, like John Moran or somebody like that? They're guys that can dunk right now. He has some Cooper Flag for that matter. They could have put anybody up there like that.
Yeah. I'm surprised. That's a good point about Cooper Flag. That would have been some marketing. That would have pulled in
he's got hops.
He's got hops.
David makes a very good point. We've seen all the dunks,
right?
But I think people, when you have stars there, it has a different flavor to it.
Interesting.
Oh, LeBron James could have been in it. He could have been in it.
41 years old, LeBron James at this point.
He still got hops.
I think he will have no problem dunking the ball. I think he has no problem doing that.
All right. Well, I think we all give it a thumbs up. Great weekend. All right. So this is a time during the show, since there weren't a lot of games last week and the NFL is kind of wrapped up, I'm going to appoint you gentlemen as the commissioner of the NBA. And I want to talk about some things. I, as a fan, I know we'll debate this, but as a fan of basketball, I love basketball. And I love the playoffs in the NBA. I think those are the greatest athletes in the world. I do. You're 6'9", 6'10", can run and shoot and all those things. But during the year, my interest is starting to wane. And I think in general, I think that's a little bit of the assessment. Also, now maybe the viewership is up, or I think it's down, but Larry said it was up because things like tanking and load management and prices of tickets, and there's a lot of other entertainment, movies and 600 TV channels. And so my question is, Larry, do you think there's a problem in the NBA? And if so, as commissioner, give me one or two things you would do to try to fix it if you assume there's a problem.
So how much power do I have as commissioner?
You have a lot. Oh, that's a good point.
I don't work for the owners, right?
I know. Larry, we're giving you big time power. You can, I know it's more complicated, but for the purposes of this discussion,
unfettered power, right?
You got big time power.
So one of the things that I think I mentioned this last week, the problem I see with them is two things. It's tanking and it's load management. All right. To get rid of tanking, I would get rid of the draft. I think I've said that here before. Or if I was going to have a draft, I wouldn't wait it. I just have a complete lottery with everybody having an equal chance of winning. It could be some variation of that, but it would not favor. I would not reward mediocrity. I think that's one thing right there. I don't get the players not playing, and I think that's hurting them. People have different attitudes about basketball, and I'll try not to go too long because I know David's on this show too. But I'll say I'm the type of person that here in Washington, when they had Gilbert Arenas and Larry Hughes, I bought ticket plans. When they had John Wall and Bradley Beal, when they were playing well, I bought ticket plans. When they're tanking, you have to put a gun to my head to go to the game. Same thing goes with the Washington Nationals. Used to retire, thought I would be going to games. So it's a matter of Nationals are just management is bad. But when guys don't play and the teams tank try to lose on purpose, that's disingenuous to the fans. And it's, I would change all of that. How I would change the load management, I'm not sure.
Right. I want to get back to the tanking thing. I want to get David's views on this in general, but I want to get back to the tanking thing. I'm kind of giving you a heads up. I'm going to circle back around to the tanking thing.
Okay.
Because I thought they tried to address the tanking by how many ping pong balls they passed up. But I want to get back to that. In general, Mr. Commissioner David, how would you, do you think there's a problem with viewership and maybe interest in the NBA on a regular season perspective? If you believe that, then how would you perhaps fix it?
It's an interesting quandary that maybe, we as viewers perceive. The NBA, to be honest with you, has never been more healthy. Now, load management and all of those things kind of hurt, and viewership might be down nationally. But this is an international sport. The Philippines, for instance, millions of people in the Philippines watch the NBA. 100 million people watch games in China. France, the superstar of the NBA, the face of the NBA is, where is he from? France. Spain. The NBA has never been this popular. So I don't see a whole lot to fix in that regard, because the NBA is right behind soccer or football, as it's known globally, in terms of interest, far beyond baseball, U.S. football. It's that big. Now, am I as glued in as I was? I'm almost 70 years old. You guys are already 70.
Yeah.
Old man. I just don't have enough time. I'm just lucky to get up and be able to play pickleball in the morning.
Well, the interesting point there is, I bet you on Sunday you don't miss those games, right? And I bet you if there's a good football game on Thursday night, you'll even watch that. My point is,
but there's only 17 games.
The scarcity.
So maybe that's part of the problem too.
And we know when those games are. The NBA, you don't know. There's not a regularity. There's a Tuesday, some Monday. You don't know exactly when your team is going to play. That's a part of it. But we can't just be myopic and look at it from the United States standpoint, because we're way beyond the United States now. This is a global sport that is phenomenal. The best players in the world are international players right now. The ghettos of Serbia and Lithuania and all places like that, they bring some stars. They're bringing it, and our people better wake up.
And Chuck, David that's the reason for the increase in viewership, because it's on those streaming services that are around the world, so people don't have to have U.S. networks to see it.
Right.
In all those other countries.
So maybe I wasn't broad enough in my thinking in this regard. It's just like in my circle of people, we just don't talk about the NBA as much as we do some of the other sports. And I've watched the North Carolina Duke basketball game, college game, the other day. And I'll tell you something, that was more exciting for me seeing that game than it was any pro game that I've seen this year. And I've seen several because I'm a Laker fan.
But the thing is, Cooper Flagg should have been in that game in the old days, right?
Right.
And Boozer's son, the star, he's going to be gone. So, we're only seeing him for a year anyway.
Well, I can't tell you that I knew all those players. It's just the enthusiasm and the excitement and the passion of which they were playing, and everybody was playing. And it was just from a enjoyment perspective, I just thought it was more enjoyable than.
So when I mentioned that I used to buy packages like when they had Gilbert Arenas, Washington probably will win 40-something games. So some people's mindset, if they don't win a championship, we haven't done anything. Right. But I can guarantee you 99% of the time I went to see Gilbert Arenas, he put on a show and they were competitive. They weren't tanking and he was there all the time. As a consumer, that's important to me. Look at the Charlotte Hornets, who I think have won like 9 or 10 in a row. They're not going to win a championship, but I bet you, at least for now, in that town, there's a little interest there. Mm-hmm. When you're in towns, when your team is not doing anything, I think it kind of falls off a lot.
The Sacramento Kings have just lost 14 in a row. And if you look at them over 25, 30 years, they've been, I think they've only made the playoffs twice or something ridiculous.
But before we get carried away, we have to still, because we're old enough to know, back in the day, the Boston Celtics were the dominant team in the NBA. Right. They often barely made 8,000 fans in the Garden.
Right.
When Bill Russell's era. Teams struggle. The Sacramento Kings, what were they? They were the Cincinnati Royals, which were before that were the Rochester Royals. And nobody was watching. The Syracuse Nationals, who are they? They became the Philadelphia 76ers. But the NBA has never been as popular. I mean, we may be frustrated, but most of the arenas are nearly 80% to 90% to 100% sold out.
When they have decent teams. And I'll say the Kings a few years ago, when they had Fox and a couple of other players, people were excited about them. Now,
but they still are drawing 16,000 fans per game.
I doubt if they're drawing that now.
Yes, they are. Check it out.
Okay. Well, so your conclusion. Okay. So generally speaking, because of the international and all the streaming, the NBA is pretty healthy as far as you guys are concerned.
Well, if you got guys making $100 million, that's healthy.
Well, it's not only they're making that $100 million, but in some cases, the ownership is writing them checks for $97 million to get out. Here's 97, Bradley Beal. Now go. Get away from my arena. So it must be pretty healthy, right? I guess, and the TV contract, et cetera.
I remember when the Pacers had to use a telethon to survive.
Yeah, we just saw that on Soul Power, didn't we? All right. Well, you mentioned tanking. That came up a couple times. So let's talk about tanking. So my thought on tanking was, we knew that was a problem. Some teams start losing so they can get the position in the draft early, but then they adjusted it by the ping pong balls. So even if you had the worst record in the NBA, you still only had your
odds are not good. Yeah.
Well, your odds weren't that good to get the best player. And it wasn't any guarantee that you got the best player, depending on what year it was. Philadelphia was trying to teach us about trust the process as it was tanking every year. And I just don't think that worked. I don't know. I could be wrong. But so what are your thoughts on this whole tanking thing? Do you think that needs to be tweaked? Do you think they need to get rid of the draft? Do you think they, like Larry said earlier, just don't have it? It should be just a random lottery selection versus taking the worst team and rewarding them with the number one spot, et cetera. What do you think in general on the tanking and the drafting thing, Larry?
I'm standing behind those statements. And I think you guys have heard me say it before. If a player decides to step out of a game because somebody's gambling on him, and they say he could be a player that plays 5 minutes a game. So if the line is 6 points and he says, I'm hurt after he scores 5 points and doesn't play anymore, they will kick him out of the league for not giving a great effort. When you got a team like the Wizards that is talking about it's going to take 3 or 4 years and we're not even going to try to win, I think that's a disservice. I think it hurts the credibility of your product.
Why
don't away?
then simply put, why would people buy tickets to go to the Wizards? Because they, like you just said, David just mentioned, those arenas are still packed.
I don't know. I don't think we're packed here.
Right.
But I mean, I'm someone that buys tickets. I mean, I would do that. And just like I said, same thing with the Nationals. They let all their players walk there, play everybody. I'm not going.
David, what's your thoughts on the draft and tanking? And I know it's a sensitive point to you right now because the Pacers aren't doing great this year, and your hope is they are able to get one of these top players.
Well, yeah, it'd be nice if they, to bring in the guy from the Clippers. They leveraged the number 1 draft pick, but only protected 1 through 4. But most of the Pacers' problems this year is injury related.
Right.
Obi Toppin is injured. He's barely playing now. He's back in the roster, but he's barely playing. He's important. Tyrese Halliburton, who's the designated star of the team, he's out for the entire season. The point guard that they have to replace him was injured early in the season. The quick forward, he was injured. I mean, injuries all up and down that roster. So it's not a bad roster. They were 2 quarters away from winning the NBA championship. Right. So it would be nice. Now they got fined $100,000 for the perception of tanking, but Rick Carlisle knows what he's doing. He's one of the best coaches in the NBA. And this is actually a good time to see players like, at the bottom of the roster. Let's see what they can do. We're still averaging 16,500 fans a game. That's better than back in the day when the Pacers were in the ABA.
So would you get rid of the draft?
No. Back in the day, they had what was called the territorial draft, territorial picks, protected picks. Wilt Chamberlain was able to stay in Philadelphia, even though he played college ball at Kansas. He took a gap year and played with the Harlem Globetrotters. But the NBA wanted to make sure he was in Philadelphia, his hometown. Right. Oscar Robertson, superstar, 3-time National Player of the Year, University of Cincinnati. He got to stay in Cincinnati and play with the Royals. Maybe something like that to protect regional players who have some interest, but they're only there for a year. If they're any good, they're only there for a year anyway. So maybe tweaking it with some territorial rights to certain players. Maybe that's a tweak that you can add to the draft. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing right here.
Yeah. That was necessary because the league was fledgling and they needed to attract local fans.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Right now, with a salary cap, because one of the fears is that all of the people are going to go to 3 or 4 teams. I think there are enough players out there, and teams that hit the salary cap can't afford to sign all of them. And I think some people are motivated by money. I know James Harden certainly seems that way. And just like you look at college football or college sports in general with the NIL, at one time, everybody wanted to go to Alabama or Ohio State. You see the talent spread out because the money's spreading them out and the playing opportunities are playing out. And I think that could have a similar impact in the pros. I'm not sure if that's a solution, but we've got to a point where, we've always had tanking, but normally it would happen at the end of the year. Right. The last couple. Right. We have teams like with Philadelphia, you mentioned the process. They told us it's going to be 6 or 7 years where they're going to lose. And the only player they have from that whole process is Joel Embiid. And he happened to be the first person they picked. They didn't even need to do that. Of course, the league stopped them after about 3 years.
Right. All right. It's just an interesting discussion because everyone's talking about the tanking. And you did throw another part into this I didn't mention, which was the gambling part. I think that's also affecting the tanking, and there's something going on sometimes when so-and-so's not playing, and I bet on that game that night and so forth and so on. Mm-hmm. I think that is also part. So if I'm the real commissioner, that whole gambling piece also plays into the things.
Well, one thing is the way they catch people. The fact that they are legal, like it's legal, and they have a relationship with the gamblers now. The gamblers can let you know when there's too much money on a big player that sits out and scores. He's on because they only get the guys that average 4 and 5 points that are not making a lot of money. So the line might be maybe 1-3, and this one guy that got banned, he got hurt 2 games in a row where it was a lot of money bet on him. If gambling was illegal, the league nobody would even notice that guy doing that.
Right.
So in one sense, it comes in kind of handy.
Well, I know that Utah was up by 17 points a game recently, 17 points, and Marketing and Jaren Jackson were both playing those 3 quarters. And for some reason, they sat them down. They did not play 1 minute of the fourth quarter, not one.
And they won the game anyway.
You're right. They won by 3.
They won the game.
Right. But the gambler, I think there was some because they got fined. I think they got.
Well, they got a bigger fine than the Pacers got.
They got fined for tanking.
It was $500,000. So I know this is a conversation. I see it everywhere. This whole tanking, the draft, blah 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 blah. So I wanted to give you experts an opportunity to at least discuss it out loud. See if our fans had any thoughts on it. And I like it. I like the fact that because I'm not sure the draft. I mean, some people don't know how to draft, right? I mean, that leads me to a trivia question tonight. I have. You ready for this? And it's a little hard, and I'll admit that. So here you go. There's only 6 teams in the history of the NBA who have not had the number one pick. Can you guys name those 6 teams?
Well, I know one.
Did that question make sense?
One of them is the Pacers.
Number 1 overall pick?
Correct.
One of them is the Pacers.
Yep, you're right.
Nets.
Nope.
Ooh. I don't know.
Lakers?
Nope.
Sacramento.
Nope. Good Lord. All that losing they've done, they've had number 1 picks.
I don't know. That's too hard.
I know it's a hard.
You made it really tough on us.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, I'll give it to you then. The Pacers, Denver, Memphis, the Jazz, OKC, and the Miami Heat. Those 6 teams have never had a number one, and everyone else has had a number one.
Speaking of Miami, I got a trivia question for you because we've been talking about the ABA. What was the name of the Miami franchise in the ABA?
Floridians.
I knew Larry would know.
Well,
Larry's a fountain of knowledge.
Yeah.
I used to go to ABA games.
So did I.
Well, speaking of the ABA, I want to get you guys. There's a great show, and I think it's on Prime Video.
It's on Prime.
Called Soul Power, and it's a 4-part docuseries or what have you, and it's about the ABA. And I've just watched it. I know the rest of us have just watched it. I thought it was really cool. I learned some things about it that I did not know, and I call myself a student of basketball in general. Let's say, for example, I didn't realize that the ABA could have had Kareem, but they bundled how to get him. The guy had a check for $1 million. Had they given him that $1 million at that meeting, I think Kareem would have been in the ABA based on the show I just saw. Also, the whole Spencer Haywood thing, they went into some detail about the Spencer Haywood situation, which I found fascinating as well in terms of how he got into pro basketball and then the fact that they wouldn't pay him. So anything about Soul Power caught your attention? What did you like about it, David?
I watched most of it with tears in my eyes. I've been an ABA guy since I was 10 years old. And, the ABA was a big thing, and it helped, spark Indianapolis because the Pacers were arguably the most important team in the league.
3 titles.
And we won 3 championships and were in 5 or 6 of the 9 ABA championship series. It was just beautiful to me because it made me relive my childhood and my heroes. And, my favorite player, the Pacers, I had 2, George McGinnis and Mel Daniels, and Roger Brown. You know, and they didn't give Mel Daniels
Roman.
credit he was due. He won 2 MVPs. You know, but the Pacers were great. And I listened to the Pacers. If I wasn't at a game or wasn't watching on TV, I was just mesmerized. You know, the Pacers were just my team. And by the way, big thing is the Kentucky Colonels. I'm still mad. The Kentucky Colonels would have been a great addition to the NBA because those Louisville fans were rabid, and that was a natural rivalry for the Pacers. And I saw Artis Gilmore and Mel Daniels battle all the time. It was beautiful.
But the show indicated the reason they didn't get in is because Chicago was trying to block that situation so they could get Artis Gilmore.
I think that's speculation.
Well, you know, the reality is both leagues were, you know, the ABA, of course, was teetering for collapse. Sure. But the NBA was not that freaking healthy financially anyway.
I know.
Either.
And look, the famous NBA championship game between the Sixers and the Lakers when Magic Johnson was a rookie and he had to stand in for Jabbar because he got hurt and he had 42 points and they beat him in that game 6 of the NBA title. It was tape delayed. It was tape delayed. They didn't show the game live.
That was a big problem for the ABA. I don't think they touched on it in the documentary. They hired the vice president or something from CBS as their commissioner. I think his name was Dolph or something like that. And they were hoping they were going to get on TV because had they gotten on TV, that would have given them a lot more leverage against the NBA. But they were bleeding money.
Right.
Well, the one thing I did get out of that and was reminded of, we talk about all-star games. There were a number of all-star games between the NBA and the ABA, and the ABA won most of them. And when the so-called merger of the 4 teams folded into the NBA, the next season, half of the all-star game,
10 out of 24 players were from the ABA.
And the best and most spectacular players were from the ABA.
So my you know, I was familiar with that. Now I'll plug David and I. We talked about this before, but I would tell you, if you like that, read this book called Loose Balls. It's like that on steroids because it kind of goes into every team and talk about players that they didn't focus on, like Bad News Barnes and some of the stuff that was going on in the locker room with the players.
Bad News Barnes.
Yeah. But my story about them is when the Washington Capitals were here that one year, me and Chuck, a guy named Charles Jackson and I, went down to the Uline Arena because it was ABA ball night. That place probably held 3,000 or 4,000 people. Okay. About 8,000 or 10,000 people showed up, so we had to get our ball at a later time. Very good game. Charlie Scott was playing for Washington. Very good game. But I still didn't have a flavor until I went to college. When I went away to college, Dr. J had just left the Squires. So all the guys I met my freshman year, they kept saying, Dr. J is the baddest person ever. I'm like, how good could he be? I went to see him play. Now, Virginia had Charlie Scott. They had who I knew, one of my heroes, as a matter of fact. They had George Gervin, who I was hearing about, who could play very well. But when Dr. J came there, it blew me away. So I went to games up in Long Island to see him a couple of times, okay? he was that good. And I was looking at that league, and I'm like, they play like people, like my friends play outside on the playground. Right. It wasn't that
right. Freedom.
And they seem to have no limit to the number of black players they can have. And the biggest difference I'll say between those leagues early on, now this is like 73, 74, I thought it was the depth. I think if you first 5 or 6 guys, they weren't that different than an NBA team. But I think once you got further down, but what happened was those teams started folding and they started absorbing more and more players. By the time those leagues merged, any matchup could have gone either way.
Yeah. We talk about Wemby being thin. When you saw George Gervin in that thing, it's amazing how thin George Gervin was, and effective. I mean, he was unbelievable.
Great shooter.
Finger roll,
but he was so thin.
And the other guy that the NBA missed out on because he got hurt right before he got there for San Antonio was Silas, their other guard. By
James
the time
Silas.
he had a major knee injury, and he wasn't quite the same as he was in the ABA. But they still had a good team once they came over. They were always in competition for the title every year.
Larry, you and I kind of disagree on this one. We kind of agree but disagree. The Julius Erving of the ABA was phenomenal. He was better than the Julius Erving that went to the NBA. He was just so spectacular. It was ridiculous. He was doing
I think his
things.
first couple of years in the NBA, he was too.
Well, of course he was,
Yeah.
but he was better in the ABA. He was better.
Well, he came over when he was like 27 or 28. He was pretty good then. Once he got to his 30s,
Well, it's not like he was a bum. No, I'm not saying that. I mean, but he was so spectacular. He rose above and carried the ABA for what it was worth.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I
he was just
strongly
unbelievable.
recommend to anyone who's watching the show, if they get a chance, to check out the 4-part series. If you have Prime Video, to check out Soul Power.
Oh, it's
it was
worth it.
It was entertaining. It was informative. It was just cool. And I think David might have mentioned it to me, so I'm glad I got a chance to check it out. And Larry suggests reading the book Loose Balls.
It's great. It's great. It's kind of.
I got to get that book.
But it's great.
Yeah. Wow. Speaking of that, one of the legendary coaches from back in the day, Doug Moe, he passed, I guess, in the last 24 hours. And Doug Moe was a fixture.
I saw Doug Moe play in the ABA.
Wow.
Those early years.
University
He was already
of North Carolina.
old at the time.
Him and Larry Brown were roommates at the University of North Carolina for a
And I
period
think
of
they
time,
played together in the pros.
too.
Yeah, they
Wow.
did.
Yeah.
I think Carolina.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Anyway, that was pretty good. All right, let's hit up on the NFL real quick. Okay, so unless you guys have anything else you want to say about the NBA, okay, let's move to the NFL real quick. So all the coaches are settled, right? The Raiders just announced Clint Kubiak is now the head coach of the Raiders in the coming fall, and most of the defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators have filled out most of the rosters. And there's even been some movement on free agent or on teams cut. Tyreek Hill got cut the other day. I saw where Seattle says they are not going to franchise Walker, which I find Kenneth Walker, which I find amazing. He was only the MVP of the Super Bowl. What has all this movement, all of those things, what fascinates you, Larry, coming the fall with all the new coaches and all the new situations? What are you looking forward to in the fall in terms of this activity?
I don't know. I haven't quite got there yet. I was thinking about the Seattle situation, though, and their wide receiver, they're going to have to pay him. So he might be the person that I franchise if I got to go between him and Walker,
Right.
Because he may end up costing them a lot more money otherwise. Haven't quite got a grasp on the NFL yet. I see Miami's doing a salary dump. They're trying to get rid of everybody. Tyreek Hill, where he ends up, would be pretty interesting. I think that would be interesting. He could help a lot of teams.
And Michael Vann brought up a good point. The day that Dr. J, everybody watched when he marched off the floor and he took the steps back and took the dunk and did the dunk thing. 2 days later, he was at Georgetown playing in one of these summer league games.
I heard about that.
Against Curtis Perry, who was a Washingtonian and playing for the Bucks. And a couple of us went out to that game, and Van said that Dr. J had 50 in that little – and in the summer league, they didn't play a lot of defense or whatever, but Doc had 50. So that's what
that visit was legendary. Everybody talks about that.
Everybody talks about that, right. All right. So Larry, you're saying that the fact that Walker, because they got signed, they got other priorities, that maybe Walker is a casualty of that situation?
Well, I think that I've heard a lot of people talking about why don't they franchise him? They may need to franchise their wide receiver.
Right.
So I think, it's everybody's doing stuff for money reasons now. So I'm not jumping any conclusions just yet.
Because I kind of keeping an eye on the Raiders, obviously. I think this whole Clint Kubiak becoming their head coach, and they're going to get rid of Geno. I'm curious, and they're going to hire or draft, in my opinion, uh, Fernando Mendoza.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really looking forward to seeing. And I got the most money under the salary cap, so I'm very interested to see what the Raiders do come fall. How about you, David? Anything? Because you guys got some decisions. I'm telling you, you guys got some decisions.
Well, I'm not going to speak on the Colts right now. You mentioned Tyreek Hill. You know, I'm going to leave the Colts aside. Tyreek Hill, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole, and he's not going to be ready. His injury is that significant. He's older. He's trouble. I wouldn't bother. Kenneth Walker, it's a shame. I hope the people in Seattle turn on the team for that. He won the MVP. Seattle would not have won the Super Bowl without Kenneth Walker, period. I mean, because his play sparked that team and was solidified them, and without the yards that he gained. And, so the running back, and I'm partial to running backs because that was a position I played when I barely played as a kid. Running backs get devalued, and I don't like it. And I don't like the fact that they're using the fact, because Kenneth Walker made last year $1.8 million.
Right.
And to franchise tag him, he'd make $14 million. So what? What's wrong with that?
Right.
I mean, you're going to nitpick that, but you're going to send a wide receiver $30 million. That's absurd. It's absurd.
Well,
that's why I think they may franchise the wide receiver. They may
franchise the wide receiver. That wide receiver would get $40 million.
Well, I mean, but they might have to do that.
Well, but wide receivers may get 8 targets a game, and Kenneth Walker will get 15 rushes and get his ass beat up and banged up, and he might break a run and score a touchdown. He's just running backs are more valuable than they're given credit for.
There's a school of thought, like you said, that he was they won the game because of him, but there's another school of thought that says their defense won that game.
The defense was pretty damn good. I can't argue that.
Look,
Kenneth Walker was necessary.
Yeah, it's complimentary football. The reality is this. I think the receiver played in that game too, right, David? Didn't the receiver play in that game?
Well, he played, but
wait. The point I make
is
my point is the receiver played in that game, but Walker was the MVP.
You're right.
I think the receiver got hurt early on or something like that.
That's right.
He
He got dinged up, and he probably didn't remember the game.
Look, Walker had a good season. Now, the receiver had a great season. I mean, he was the offensive player of the year, I think. But I just find it fascinating that they would let Walker go. The other thing is, how about Malik Willis? Will he be with Green Bay, or what team will Malik Willis be with next year? He's the quarterback. He's the backup quarterback with the Green Bay Packers for the audience.
Well, he was not valued when he was with the Titans.
Right.
They let him go, and he went to Green Bay.
Yeah.
He's played well sparingly as the backup quarterback. He's worthy of giving a shot as a starter. He's not a joke. He's for real. Somebody should pick him up, but will they? The NFL is pretty odd about that. If somebody's going to back up,
I don't think the Jets have a quarterback, do they?
Or Miami. Miami's getting ready to let their quarterback go.
Right.
Well, but are they smart enough? There's a bias against a guy if they've been a backup. And sometimes the NFL, which is not always smart, the GMs are not always that smart. They'll bias a guy forever. Just like your guy with the Seattle Seahawks. It took him forever for somebody to respect him. I still kind of not respect him because of the 5 teams.
No, because you're stubborn. Because you're stubborn. That's why you don't respect them.
The Cardinals are getting ready to get rid of their quarterback too.
Jacoby Brissett is done just a fine job.
But I would bring some competition here for him.
I'm sure they
will.
will.
Probably so. They will.
If not draft. But that's a good point. We've been talking about salaries for running backs and these receivers. Look, the Cardinals paid that guy, that quarterback. The Dolphins paid that quarterback. And here they're both getting ready to let them go. So
$50 million. And
a lot of money.
That upsets you. It upsets me too.
And I know you mentioned you didn't want to get into the Colts, but the Colts got a receiver named Alec Pierce.
Pierce.
People
Well,
really like that dude.
I can't get excited about Pierce. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because he's never had more than 30 or 40 catches in a season, and he's been hurt. Yes, he gets a lot of long catches, but I think the big year that he may have had 35 catches. If you look it up, he's not a volume receiver. He's somebody who can stretch the field, but that's his value. If he was catching 90 passes, I would agree, but he's never caught more than 50.
What about the guy from Dallas?
Oh yeah,
because they can't afford to pay him either. Not what he wants.
Right. George Pickens, that came from Pittsburgh. They got a situation too. But you know what I've noticed though, Larry, because Kansas City just did it. Somehow you can take these people's salaries, flip it to bonus money, give them the big, whatever that money is. I'm talking about your current players, and then reduce your cap. And I think
they just did that with Mahomes.
Yes,
restructured it,
and that's what they did with Prescott in Dallas a year ago too. They changed all his monies to bonus money and freed up some money. So, I don't know.
They kind of stretch it out over years sometimes.
Right. All right. So look, I was going to get into the hoops thing. All I will say about hoops is this: college hoops is this. Michigan plays Duke this Saturday. They're two of the top two teams in the country, and they're playing in Washington, D.C. I'm not sure why. I don't understand what that's all about, but that's the game that everybody's talking about. And on that same note, I think Houston, which is like the number 2 or 3 team, they're playing Arizona, which again is one of the 2 or 3, 4 teams. So Houston is playing Arizona. Duke is playing Michigan. Those are 2 college games this weekend. If you guys the audience wants to start really checking out some college hoops, those are 2 good games to check out this weekend. So
I think those are the 4 best teams in college basketball.
I think they are.
And Michigan at the top of the list.
Woo. Are they ranked 1 through 4?
Yes.
Because I think this is only like the 2nd or 3rd time this has happened with it. Yeah.
1 plays 2 and 3 plays 4, something of that nature. So so that's gonna be some good stuff. I've checked out a couple of college games of late, and I'm telling you, man, college ball is happening. Texas Tech just lost their star player for the year, so that's going to hurt them. And this team in Ames, Iowa State, they got a good ball club. They got a really good ball club. So check them out. And Kansas has a good ball club, but I think their star players shut it down for the year. Daryl.
The team I like is not nobody's talking about them.
In Ohio.
No, Miami. That goes without saying. They're the only undefeated team in D1.
Right.
But St. Louis. Now, St. Louis Billikens, the core of that team was at Indiana State a couple of years ago. Coach went, and then the big cat with glasses, he's on St. Louis now. And St. Louis only lost 2 games in the Missouri Valley. No, they're not A10. A10, I believe.
They got a big game coming up too.
They lost last night, I believe.
Yeah.
But they will be they will if they won and got to the Elite 8, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Real quick before we get into closing comments, the great Reverend Jesse Jackson passed this week, and I want to take a second and tell you, I thought that guy was impressive as hell. When I heard him do the keynote address at the convention years and years ago, as a young person, I was like, whoa, that dude got the gift of gab. And his story is an amazing story. And he's the last of those guys who's fighting for folks who need people to fight for him. So God bless and rest in peace, Jesse Jackson. David, Larry, do you guys have any comments about
I have a comment about him. I got a chance to know him and report on him. I covered both of his presidential campaigns in 1984 when I lived in Dayton, Ohio. Came through Dayton. I got a chance to interview him. When he ran in 1988, I got to interview him as well. And I got to know him when he moved to Washington, D.C. as a shadow senator, that role that he got. I probably interviewed Jesse about 12 times over the years. Wow. A very interesting guy, My reporting career was very special to me because I got a chance to meet and observe and interview some of the most important people in this country. And Jesse Jackson is no question one of the most revered, one of the most important figures in civil rights history.
I absolutely agree. Great words. Quite frankly, he was a good football player at North Carolina A&T as well. He transferred from the University of Illinois when he was on a football scholarship and went to A&T. So he was a good athlete. Larry, any words about the good Reverend Jesse Jackson?
Well, my hat goes off to anybody that dedicates his life to public service. And I could tell you guys, I heard him speak the day before he spoke at the DMV. He was at the National Urban League convention here in Washington. I guess it's the old Washington Sheridan over in Connecticut Avenue.
Right.
And I can guarantee you his speech that day was every bit as good as the one he gave at the conference. Almost had me going up there giving him money.
Great speaker. Up with hope.
Almost. I am somebody. You know what I'm saying?
Amen.
So, the great Jesse Jackson. Any closing comments, Larry?
Yeah, I really, going back to the NBA, I wish they would figure out something about load management. That is such a ripoff for your fans. And it's you had mentioned in our write-up for the show that it costs the tickets, and that's a real concern right there. And I think that when some teams in the West come to your city once a year, if the players are not hurt, they should play.
Right. I heard Magic talking about that, and he said the same thing you're saying. It's ridiculous these guys aren't playing. He hates it. David?
Yes, I've got a closing comment. This is a shout out to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, the co-owner of 23XI, NASCAR's team, won the Daytona 500 with Tyler Reddick. Also on that team is Bubba Wallace and Riley Herbst. The first time an African American has won the Daytona 500. That's the flagship race of NASCAR. It's not the Indianapolis 500, but it is damn important. And for Michael Jordan, who's had that team for a number of years, it's now a top tier team, and he has got to be taken seriously. He co-owns a team with Denny Hamlin, and it's a special thing because minorities, particularly African Americans, are scarce in auto racing. And as you guys know, I'm a big auto racing fan. I'm not a big NASCAR guy, but hosannas to whoever African American minority does well in motorsports, because that's one of the sports that I do love.
Right. I knew you cared about that, and that was cool to see. And Bubba Wallace, is it Bubba Wallace, the driver?
Bubba Wallace, yes.
Yeah, he's also African American.
He was leading about 50 some laps of that race. Daytona 500. I don't particularly care for the mechanics of it, but it's still an important part of NASCAR, and it's their leadoff race of every year.
And shout out to Michael Jordan. His birthday was the other day, so he just.
How old is he now? 61.
Yep. Him and Jim Brown shared the same birthday.
Jim Brown, greatest football player ever.
I think that was Monday, actually. Yep. So pretty cool stuff. Hey, look, I don't have a big time closing comment. I'll just say this. Right now, as Washingtonians, and I'm sure this is happening all over the country, high school basketball playoffs have begun. And I'm telling you, the DC, the DMV, we love our high school basketball. We think the Washington Catholic Athletic Conference, the WCAC, that has DeMatha and McNamara and Good Counsel and St. John's and Gonzaga and O'Connell, etc. That tournament is a hell of a tournament. A lot of those kids are going on to the major schools. I saw a game the other night between DeMatha and McNamara. The star player for McNamara is going to Indiana next year. They beat him by 3 at the buzzer. His name is Prince Moody. So Indianapolis, get ready for Prince Moody because he's coming your way. So if you get a chance, guys, get out to these high school basketball playoffs. They're absolutely fantastic. This weekend is at Gallaudet on Saturday, and then they move on Sunday to American University, and the championship games on Monday night.
Let me just add to that. I know I'm not supposed to overtalk your closing.
No, that's fine.
But in 49 states in the District of Columbia,
football,
it's just basketball. But this is Indiana, buddy.
Well, football is important. It's a football statement. Hey, listen, that's all we got. Thank you, everybody, for checking it out. Hey, gentlemen, you guys were fantastic. Again, we gave Greg the night off. We'll see if he'll be back next week. I'm not sure. And everyone have a great weekend.